Table Talk is not your typical D&D ttrpg podcast. We are not here to run you through our whole campaign.
We're here to talk about everything else in the space of tabletop roleplay.
I'm your host, Alejandra Wilhelm.
And I'm also your host, Mariah Gresham.
And we're your tabletop roleplay girlies.
Alrighty, and we are live with another episode of Table Talk with your Table Talk girlies, me, your host, Alejandra.
And me, your other host, Mariah.
And welcome back to another episode. I wanted to kind of cover, because I don't know that we've truly discussed it in depth yet. We've talked about stuff really cool and being a Rose lawyer and stuff like that, but I don't know that we've ever broached the topic of homebrew and what that is and what it can look like and how it can be done well and how it can be done kind of bad.
Yeah.
And I think I know that both your game and my game, we were very much I've taken the bones of the structure of the game and what it kind of basically tells me, but then as far as story goes, we're doing
just hanging on for dear life.
Hanging on for dear life. But yeah, so I know for me, and we've talked about it plenty of times where I was, especially in the beginnings of my DM journey, one, it was always a very intimidating thing to do. So when we first started, I was listen, we're going to pick a book. I'm going to run it by the book. And then that lasted all of 2 seconds. Because ultimately, the stuff that y'all had come up with was so much more interesting to me than the plot that the story of the book was kind of, and maybe it's just, I can't speak for every book. I've since now learned that a lot of people complained about the lackluster story within the Strixhaven book. Because it is kind of
I've not read it, obviously, but from what you've told me, it doesn't seem, it seems like they almost want you to take the bones of it and do your own thing, because it doesn't seem like they give you much to work with.
Yeah, and I know it's a partnership with Magic the Gathering too, and other stuff, so it's not a true D&D module.
And that may be why it's one of sometimes the partnerships like that, I feel like they either go so hard and just knock it out of the park, or it kind of becomes a little bit of a lukewarm version of both things, where it's there's a level of compromising where maybe it's something just didn't click fully.
Yeah, and from my research after we started, a lot of people just kind of had that same feeling with trying out the Strixhaven story stuff that it's got going, because it is from level 1 to I think 10 or 15 or something module. But yeah, and I got through most of the beginning stuff, and then I skimmed the rest, and I was there's things I want to keep. There's other things that I don't really much care for. And I also just felt because we are such a roleplay heavy table, the story was already naturally taking its own separate direction, as it tends to do.
Yeah.
And it was just a lot more interesting than me having to force feed y'all whatever the mystery around fucking goo was.
Yeah, 5 episodes of goo-related antics. I'm still a little bit worried that goo is going to come back to bite us in the ass.
I don't think so. Maybe I will as a ha-ha, but... but yeah, it was definitely something that was interesting, because I really thought that I'd be less comfortable making up so much of it on the spot. But it's also Strixhaven specifically tells you that you can set the college anywhere. It can be put in any place. And at the time, I was well, I'm not going to bust open another fucking book and just be cross-referencing between 2 fucking books.
Yeah.
And at the time, I had an RP server, and it was already really fleshed out. So I was I'll just put it in there, because I already know a lot of the stuff that's going on in that city. And it was very much the way that some people plan out their worlds macro to micro, meaning they start with gods and work their way back down to
religious structures and deities and how the government is, or
or you go the opposite way, which is very much what I'm doing currently, which is you work from the micro to macro. And so we start focusing on the college, a little bit of the city that y'all are in when you happen to like go out of it, and then the rest of the world kind of has started to take shape as we went.
Yeah.
Like
And I feel like
gods
for
and pantheons is
Mhm.
also taking shape around y'all as well.
Yeah.
And just random shit that I come up with.
Yeah, and I feel like with TTRPGs, like there's no one right way to do anything, right? So it's like you certainly could have like like be someone like Matt Mercer who is like planned out, and I don't really know. They've played in like Exandria world for so long. Like I don't know at what point he came up with like all the continents and the gods and these, but like it is almost like a little bit more intuitive, at least the way we play TTRPGs, to like let the world form as you go, because so much you could put so much effort in for something that like may not come up for 4 years.
Yeah.
And then like you have to scramble to come up with a section of the world that maybe you forgot about but you need urgently. It's like if you let yourself just build it as you need it, that seems to save a little bit more time.
I think it's definitely
and
less
like
stressful.
yeah,
For sure. And I also feel like, and again, I think this is just also part of who I am as a person. And I've always been a big creative, like sided brain person. I am not a numbers. I'm not an analytical. I am analytical, but not in like the crunchy numbers and data and like that
not in like a
kind of
math and navigation way.
yeah. So when it comes to the creative aspect of storytelling and world building, that kind of comes second nature to me. But I definitely know people that are not that, and like they need the structure, they need to know all that information off the dome, and they thrive in that. And like I recognize their brains will work much differently than mine. So
Yeah. It's a little ironic because like for me, like with TTRPGs, and like I said, like mine's a little different because like I run a modified Fall of London, right? So similar thing happened of like I knew I liked a lot of things about that story even before I had the book. I got the book. I had y'all start like coming up with characters. I didn't read the book until y'all came up with characters, the ideas that were already cool. And so I had that, took that to the book, quickly figured out that I could not run the modules as written because the characters you made did not fit because I did not read the module before I told you to make characters. And so I was like, okay, we're going to have to go off script a little bit to like, because I'm going to have to change some things and embellish and everything. And also like, I don't live in London. I don't have a, a clear version of the layout of it or how things work. General, like big landmarks, sure. But like, so like the city itself, like another of my little modifications has been like, the city itself is not as big of a character as it is in like some Vampire the Masquerade Chronicles. Like, if we were playing it in like Houston or Austin or somewhere, like it maybe would be, but it doesn't fit with that story that we're telling. So it's more like we could kind of be in any city, except for like that everyone sounds vaguely British.
yeah.
But like for me, definitely building out like the important locations in the world and like where everyone's havens, where Elysium's kept, where is like this faction at, where's that faction at, like that has been very bottom up. But like when I'm writing like a novel, I am top down, where it's like, no, I do need to know how religion works, and I do need to know characters' names and like what houses they're tied to that are important and what those house names are. Like I need all that information, like how the gods work, right, to write the story. So it's like it's very interesting. I think it's something to do, at least for me, with like the co-creation part of TTRPGs, where it's like I know that there will be other stuff filled in along the way, so I feel more comfortable rolling with it. Whereas like if it's just me and my brain in a dark room, it's like, oh, if I don't know it, I don't know it.
You're like, I need all the information right here, right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's definitely something like I think the more we've played and the more experience I've gotten now that we've been doing it for about like 2 years now. Yeah, it's definitely been a semblance of me letting go of a lot of control because it just feels more fun. And I like letting y'all have elements of the creation of the world and taking like ownership of characters and like what we talked about last episode and other things.
Yeah.
And I also found a big comfort in it, in that, like, one, we were touching a module that no one's ever played before. And two, it's set in a world of my own creation. So especially being a new DM, that felt very comforting because, one, if I get something wrong to the Strixhaven lore or whatever, none of us play fucking Magic the Gathering and nobody's going to clock me.
Yeah.
And if I want to change things to fit more into my world and my story that I'm trying to tell, I totally could.
Yeah. That is a very good thing. Like, you don't want to be like, hey, before you start running a game, you are required to build out an entire world at 3 a.m. in a Discord server.
Let me go revisit my bare bones knowledge of Magic the Gathering that I learned in like early college. Go build a deck and figure the fuck out.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it is a good tip. Like, if you happen to have a pre-built fantasy world lying around just in the dregs of your Discord, like what brain or whatever, like, and you can use that as your setting, that's great. Like, you don't want to tell people, right, to be like, hey, I'm sorry, you have to actually do this homework before in a mania before you can run the game,
or just make one. Like, I say I had this world or like the city already kind of mapped out, but like in actuality, not even that much. Because it was really...
you had like the guilds, you knew that there was a council.
Yeah, I had the guilds, I had the council of like the major government like officials basically. And I had at the time it was a king because like the king was being played by somebody else, but then I changed it to a queen for our like story purposes. But that's really all I had. It was just the guilds, the government, the name of the city, and that's it. Like, truly. And so I had a bare bones idea of kind of how that worked. And then once we and like, I knew the city was going to be a backdrop to what we're really focused on, which is Strixhaven. So I knew I was going to have a little bit of runway to figure out other stuff. And again, once y'all created your characters, that helped shape a little more of what the city entailed. So like, you're all Nepo babies. So you all come from powerful families in varying degrees. And so like, the whole reason there's royal families in like petty kings and queens and lords and ladies is because of Callista's family existing. The reason that there is like a secret order is because of the stuff that happened with your character and their family. And like the question that provoked, okay, why are your parents missing or dead? What were they involved in? And who was responsible? And that shaped the fact that there even was like an order of the Owls Secret Society. And then it's like, okay, why did they form? Like, who are they against? What are they protecting people from? That forms the Auric. And like the Auric is something from Strixhaven. I've just adapted it.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
To a different like purpose. And just made them more like shadow organization in the bad way. Bad shadow organization. And Jack and like his brother helped me form a lot of like kind of the inner dynamics of government and also like some other stuff that we'll get into as we approach Jack's
foreign relations type
foreign
things,
relations,
I think, 'cause, like,
and
they're
other
from
things.
A different country.
So like that started kind of fleshing things out for me. And
that's true. I guess I thought like, I don't know, you had like in that original server, to be fair, like you had so like everyone
I did wake up
big
at 3
descriptions and
like
so like it seemed like this big mammoth thing, and I like to scroll through it because there was like a lot of cool art and descriptions and like ideas and stuff in there. But I guess when you really think about it, it was mostly you had like 4 or so like core points of the city and how things work and like where power comes from. And you were kind of off to the races.
Basically. So, I didn't have and again, that was it. I didn't even have like the continent we were going to be on when we started. Like that was formed later. like me making a map and then like me trying to build out the map and try to be like, okay, what's on this fucking map? Like, what are the cities? What are the things? And like, it started small and started gradually getting bigger. And like, yeah, as NPCs get introduced and I have to figure out where they're from, that shaped like the cultures of the different because Strixhaven's like a university college style thing. So I'm like, you're gonna get people from all over the place. And so sometimes it would just be at random and I'd be like, cool, where is this fucking person from? And I'm like, okay, Saxana, I guess. And then I'd base the culture around the art that I picked for that character, basically.
Yeah, I do a lot of that too with like the clans the different NPCs are in and stuff where it's like you'll have like you start with like a core aspect of that NPC and then you just build from there.
Yeah.
And some of that is like it's a mix of like things that are like pulling things that are more stereotypical or like stuff that you could assume by looking at that person, like or stuff that you can infer by looking at that person versus like how powerful they are or like their income level or areas that they live in or whatever. And then other things, yeah, it's fun to like put a couple twists in there that are fun and unusual and are things you can play up in the moment. But yeah, if you just have like a couple core pieces about them, then you can kind of get through a scene and like figure out who that person is in the playing of them.
Truly. And I think a lot of the fun also comes with like those decisions you kind of make in the moment. When somebody asks like, yeah, like where is this person from? Or like random details that you're like, oh shit. And like you just fucking throw a dart blindly into the darkness and whatever that hits, you've now spoken it into existence. But I think a lot of interesting things can come of that like improvisational style of play. And because it's homebrew, like you have the freedom to do that. You quite literally can't be wrong in a world that you're making up as you go.
Yeah, that's the one thing where it's like, because most of my books that I have are like resource books. I think I have the Ghost of the Saltmarsh book. I have the Wild Beyond the Witchlight, and I have like the book that's like a bunch of little one shots. And those are really the only setting books that I have. But like when I have like, there was a point like years ago where I was gonna try to run Ghost of the Saltmarsh, or at least like a one shot there or something. And I got so overwhelmed by like, because there's so many NPCs, and you have to remember that like this is cousin Jerry who's 50 years old and like has a fishing boat. And I'm like, I'm not gonna remember that.
Yeah.
And it's like if you get it wrong, then like that might be a problem because maybe Jerry's smuggling drugs out to the island. Like, I don't know. So, that's not what happens in Ghost of the Saltmarsh, I don't think. Maybe it is. But like,
shout out to Jerry, the drug dealing cousin.
Yeah, like who, like you can be wrong. And then it's like, oh shit, I fucked it. And I have to go back and find all the places where like you change, Jerry's name to Billy Bob. So you would say in the right person. Yeah, it's just, and that was part of and it's honestly probably not really that deep. And like, again, it's not you can run a module. And if you want to rename people or pick new arts, that's fine. But like for me in my brain, when I was first trying to get my head around running something, yeah, that ability to like be wrong and then be caught in it. And that was also partially because like one of the people that was going to play with me, I knew if I had like, he was a perma DM and he would say, he's like, when I play, I'm out to get the person running the game. And I'm like, okay, so you're going to try to find ways to fuck with me in this. And like, not in a fun way. And fun for him, not fun for me. And so I was like, shit has to be buttoned up. And it's like, if I can be wrong, I know I can't.
Yeah.
And that was like why I was just like, I don't think I'm not going to do this right now.
Yeah. It's a funny, like, because I think for people that especially are new to the hobby or like just entering the hobby, you would think it's the opposite. You would think the thing that gives you all the resources and all the information is going to be the easier thing to run. Because you have that to kind of cling to like a safety blanket. But at least in my experience with the way that like my brain specifically works, it felt, like there's a pressure there that I just feel is like unnecessary, especially when you're just trying to like figure things out and what your play style is. And like you have so many other things to focus on as a DM. And a lot of people will feel like, doubt after a game of like, oh, was that even fun for like anybody?
Oh yeah. I do that.
And so I think you already have so much pressure on you, placed by yourself, as a DM, that I'm like, you may as well just run something a little looser that gives you that flexibility so that you don't have to worry about that as much. You don't have to worry about being wrong.
And it's also a thing where it's like, for me, sometimes like modules can feel like a bunch of new ways to fuck it up. And it's also like I'm like, when you're DMing a game, like the NPCs are like your player characters, right? Like that's how you're playing, that's how you're participating. And so like I'm more invested in NPCs that like I kind of found art for, and
I created,
have come up with a little backstory, and like I've named them, and like being able to like come up with people that like have interesting things going on, even if that like never really comes, on screen, so to speak, helps me keep track of things, because I'm more motivated to than just being like, here's a bucket of guys that are just random.
A bucket of dudes whose names I read a few times over, and I'm desperately trying to remember which one is which.
Right. Yeah. Like, it's hard. Whereas, like, if you're more, like, attached to them because, for whatever reason, you found art that you like, or a cool idea, or they have, like, interactions with another NPC that, they have a thing going on the side, like, it makes it more fun to play with like the subtleties.
Yeah.
And I think that, at least for me, helps make the world feel richer and more lived in, and less like me just spouting off just random descriptions of shit, because they feel like real people. So it's like when they're in a scene, they're reacting to y'all, they're reacting to other NPCs. They're like, it's the whole, I'm constantly seeing the web of relationships, which is easier to see if I come up with those people versus if I am reading about it in a book and then have to like implant it in my brain.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the other element too is like, there's degrees of like, there's homebrew in world building, but there's also like a bit of homebrew in, if your party members want to do something fun and interesting with their characters that is normally like not allowed with rules as written.
Yeah.
My main example right now is like Callista, for example, is a half ASMR, half tiefling. And traditional D&D, it's like the only real half, like whatever, is half orc, half elf, half whatever. Yeah. And it's typically the other half is human. They don't really explore what that means to have half of one specific race and another, or like species or whatever ancestry, that aren't just this and human. And I recall when I tried to do that for like our Barovia campaign, when I was coming up with characters, I asked the DM if I could do something like that. And he told me that I'd basically have to play like a bipolar character because of the warring, I guess, alignments of each of those like ancestries.
And we don't have time to unpack all of that. Because maybe that should be our next episode that we record about weird. I remember that, and I was like, one, there's a bipolar bitch in this game, so like slightly like insulting there. Also, most of us are mentally ill. So it's like, what do you mean?
And I was like, I really just want it for the aesthetics, my guy. Like, I'm not trying to go that fucking deep in it.
I just wanted to be like a hot tiefling with wings, and now you're making me question how I feel and relate to like mentally ill people.
My character, and having to portray something that I don't particularly have. So yeah, and so it was weird, but that was a thing that was in the back of my mind when Bex asked, and I was like, yeah, no, you get to play that thing, and it doesn't have to be fucking weird.
Yeah, it doesn't also come with like a mental illness.
Like,
you don't have to flip. You don't have to like roll a dice to see if you get OCD, bipolar
ADHD,
disorder, depression, or ADHD
anxiety,
or
like,
whatever the fuck.
No. And I'm like, lo and behold, we've had no issues. Like, I remember him and I talking about it, and like, it was just, I was like, I don't think it has to be like that. And he's like, no, it would like, like for him, it had to be for some reason. I was like, okay, I don't feel comfy cozy doing that if that's the condition of playing a character that I want to play.
Which also, like, yeah, props to you for being like, I mean, for him to suggest that is also like problematic for so many reasons because, like, how do you play a bipolar person, right? No, there's no good.
I play a bipolar person when there's a bipolar girl sitting next to me? Like,
and like, whether there is or not, it's like, there's no good answer to that.
No.
And it's like, yeah, I get this could be a whole fucking episode. So it's like, I won't get on too much on that soapbox. But like, yeah, like how do you play someone with whatever insert fucking illness or or disability potential? Like, that isn't like, there's a way to do it that isn't stereotypical, but like, it's so hard, and to make it just like a weird punishment.
Yeah, and
it's
also
so
like,
strange.
It's very strange, very like demeaning to people that like have that. And also, yeah, like it would be one thing if it was prompted by me of like, hey, like I've suffered from depression before. Maybe I want to play on that, like in a character or something.
Yeah, or like if it's something you wanted to explore. Like my backup character for that campaign was fully a psychopath from her trauma. And it's like, I was like, yeah, that's something I like want to explore, but I'm going to do it in a mindful and demure way. And also, like, I'm a mentally ill woman with a background in psychology. So I'm not perfect or like a complete bastion of information, but I feel like I have enough context to do what I wanted to do in a way that wouldn't demean anyone.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a whole thing in and of itself. But yeah, whenever Bex asked for that, I was like, oh yeah. And like, I basically just sat there and was like, okay, there's not really any rules written for what to do whenever it is like a non-human half kind of thing. And so I just basically was like, yeah, like make it up on the spot. And I told her, you have a limited amount of like features and traits you can pick. You can select from both and whatever combination you see fit, really. But like, you're going to be limited in that way. And like, you have plenty of options, but you can only have this many. So you got
which I love because like you have that anyway. Like you only get so many features and traits anyway. So it's like, oh, if you're pulling from two gene pools, so to speak,
it's like, okay,
then
we could do it randomly, or you can choose what you get, basically.
Yeah.
And so now you have like there's that homebrew feeling of like you kind of created this for yourself specifically. The other thing is like we play with like third-party content sometimes. So like Bex's class is a tattooist, which is not a rules as written thing. So we have to like kind of do some homebrew around that as well. And it's been very fun. And like I think the other thing too is like there's always a little bit of consciousness, especially as a DM, for like how much you're allowing. Because like rule of cool can get a little crazy if you're saying yes to everything. But I always like made sure to kind of like set the tone and establish that like with y'all, you know, obviously am new DM, still learning. So I'm like, for most things, if it sounds cool and it doesn't feel like it's going to break the game immediately, I'll say yes. And then if we start playing and like later on, I'm like, hey, this is really broken. Like maybe we can revisit that particular thing. But I also never want to be of the mindset of like, I don't want to take away something I've said yes to. I may just modify it. So it's a little less broken, or you still have the thing, or I'll trade you. Like, hey, maybe not this, but maybe something else that would be
or it's
so
just like
cool.
Instead of oops free use, it has charges or like anything.
Let's set a couple limitations.
You can only do it once a day, or because like Anya's armor is also completely homebrew. Like, and because we're doing a little thing kind of like the artifacts from Critical Role where they have different like awakened levels. And so we're coming up with those as we go. And I also think like none of us as players want anything that's going to break the game.
Yeah.
Like I know that because it's not a thing at our table, but it's like it comes up just because like some people are like drink so much of the power gamer juice that they are like, ooh, let me see if I can sneak in something that's just really diabolical. Like, none of us are really doing that. A lot of our shit is for like the vibe and the aesthetics and are like, because the concept is cool. And then like, if we need to put a limitation on it, we're like, no, yeah, fair. Like, none of us are like, Alyssa's probably the most like mechanics minded. And we have friends that are like game like crunchy gamers that we can ask
games, and I can appreciate like that degree of fun. But yeah, it's definitely not a problem I run into at my specific table. But
no,
it is something to be mindful of at other tables when like you are starting to allow, because there will be people that want to see how far they can push the limits of the rules in the game and the things that have been allotted. And I think it is important in general to set an expectation, because like you can back yourself into a corner as a DM, or you can say, hey, fair enough. You have all these powerful, cool things that I've allowed. I too now also have some OP shit, and I'm just gonna raise the stakes. And that can be fun too.
Or it's just like, if you get caught in like one encounter, like maybe you as the DM just whiff it for one encounter. And then, you either have to be like, okay, that one's on me.
We're going to recalculate.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm going to beef up all of my stuff on my end, or
we're just going to up the ante and make it harder.
Or we're going to like adjust things in some way. But yeah, like it's also like one of my pet peeves with like, if someone has an ability or something cool their character can do, and like the DM doesn't want to let them
give them opportunities to do it,
that annoys the fuck out of me. Just because it's like, for me, like when I'm running games, I'm like, there's so much shit I want y'all to like find and notice and figure out so I can tell you about it. So it's like, what do you mean you just want to keep your little dirty secrets behind your board? I'm like, please try to lip read somebody.
Yeah. Like famously me, whenever you're in like any Bloodstone house, I'm like, somebody please go open their cupboards and like check their attic or something.
Go dig through their medicine drawer. See what kind of sex toys they have. Like, see what they're up to.
I'm begging. I'm pleading for my life out here.
We need a one shot where like we play as Bloodstone staff. And we just like
creep around the house.
We just dig through
the house. You're just gossiping. It'll be after like Callista's arc is already done. All the secrets are out. And it's just like all the random shit I didn't get to say. And y'all can just be gossipy little servants walking in on shit.
Yeah.
And like, I love that. That'd be funny as fuck. But yeah, it's something. I know like there's also the degree as a player. I've definitely girl boss my way fairly close to the sun when asking like a DM to homebrew something for me.
Oh yeah.
And like I think my proudest is finessing an artifact when we were like level 5 or something in Barovia. Because I'm like, well, my violin broke justifiably with a nat 1.
And you're bard, so you need that. You need something.
I do need that violin, and that violin had like story importance. So I can't just go to the fucking Target down the road and grab another.
You can't just go to like ye old instrument store and pick up. Like, that's not gonna cut
it. The music and more is not nearby.
Not the music and more.
And so I was like desperately trying to fix it and stuff. And like I knew I had wanted to start leveling up with Paladin, and like there was going to be, I think we were already planning for me to have a Paladin level that next like level up.
Yeah.
And so I like managed to finesse it into the story. And like the violin itself was already like a pretty, I don't even remember what rarity it was, but it was up there.
Pretty rare. At that campaign, we also started at like level 6.
Yeah.
So we started with like some pretty. I know it was probably rare because like Eva's tattoo was homebrew. It was like a homebrew of the like monk, the shadow monk, like life drain ability, basically, in a tattoo that had like 3 charges a day. And so it was probably we all had like a pretty beefy item to start.
Yeah. And I had I had seen some art on Pinterest of like a violin shield. And I had also
cool.
collected a shield from the boss that we had just defeated.
Yeah. So you're like, I have shield, I have fucked
I
up
have
violin.
shield, I have violin, and I have a Pinterest image and a dream.
Yeah.
And
I have
I'm trying
a dream
to make
in my heart.
I have a dream in my heart that I'm trying to make it happen. And so I kept just trying to like figure out how, and like every route that I had like thought would be a way to do it was like close to me. Cause I remember I tried to find that like little hidden magic shop and I
That
just
fucking magic shop pissed me off.
Find it when I fucking needed
it. The DM never let it show up. We require potions. Can't find it.
And
it's like, are we just dicking around at the bar? Guess who's also here? The magic shop. Like, why is it this way?
And I remember specifically, I had to like basically call out into the fucking darkness and just be like, I'll sell you my fucking soul if you show up right now.
It was like, something super unchill to do in a dread domain. Like you were just like out here working the corner to a god.
Like, I know this man wants my soul bad for this fucking instrument. And so I was like, hey, I'm down to clown if you are, if you just show up in this alleyway. And he did. But then he was like, it's going to take 3 to 5 business days. I was like, we're fighting this bitch tomorrow. What do you mean?
Like, that's not
going to work for me. And so thankfully I kept my soul. But it was just like, hey, I can't go into the big fight without my violin.
A weapon. Yeah.
You've got me, as a bard, you got me fucked up. What am I going to do? Pick up a maraca?
Like, I have a harmonica in my pocket, but I don't think that's going to cut it against the dreadlord.
No, and so I was like, no, absolutely not. I'll just take my broken ass violin and figure it out. And yeah, it was a time, but then like eventually it got to the point where I was like, okay, I swore my oath, and like the goddess, combined them, and then what came out of that was like, my violin was already, it had like several charges of different like water-based magics because she was a little more forged with the spirit of a water genasi, and then combined with the like items abilities, the shields abilities that the Dreadlord had used before, which were like basically activating like a pushback effect. Like if I got hit with the shield up, it would like,
it was probably like a shield bash ability or something like that.
And it pushed like the enemy back like 10 or 15 feet or some bullshit like that. And so on top of the water-based stuff that it could do, and it could switch between being a shield and a violin. And yeah, I was like, he told me it was an artifact, and I was like, oh goddamn, okay, I'll take my win and skedaddle with it. But that was definitely like my biggest finesse, I think, in homebrewing an item.
Mine probably is either like Eva's tattoo was pretty good that I mentioned earlier because like monks are pretty squishy, and so like if anything, she had very good dex and like in wisdom and a high AC. But I was like, if she gets hit, which she did often get hit, I was like, she's gonna go down. So yeah, the ability of like if I killed someone to have that like touch of death, reactivations of like touch of death, basically in her sleeve tattoo was great. I'm also proud of Anya's armor. Like right now, like it's heavy armor. Right now I have like advantage on stealth checks while I'm wearing it
which
because
you
Reaper.
Roll flat.
Yeah, which is dope. Yeah, all black armor. And then we're going to do... We have one ability from our things right now, don't we? And we're like, we get another one at the end of this arc. Isn't that right?
Yeah, those are the items that like are meant to grow with you.
Grow with us, yeah. So like her second ability is going to be, we've been affectionately calling it like a murder misty step of like kind of similar of like when she kills someone, she can like teleport misty step, within a 60-foot range to a different target if she kills someone. So it's like, that'll be dope as fuck for movement when we're fighting. Beyond that, I don't know. I gotta keep thinking of a few others.
Yeah, we'll stew on it. Yeah, like the coming up with items that like specifically grow with the player is also fun. Because it was very much a like, hey, pitch it to me and we'll fucking roll with it. And like I've really, really enjoyed it. Like Callista's is her tattoo / birthmark that I've now
it's that like Gates tattoo, which is crazy.
Crazy shit, but does like make her exhausted depending on how many gates she opens.
It is
so,
like I think technically if you had all the gates open, it would kill you.
Correct.
Like,
It's a full kamikaze. If you open all the gates, you're like, I know I'm gonna go down and die as soon as this combat's over, basically. So it's a Hail Mary. But I like it. It's an interesting thing to play on. And like ultimately, like even if not all gates and you open some of them, you're still suffering exhaustion, which can be detrimental if you're still in dangerous like situations.
Which has led to some really funny like RP things because she's like opened like one of them for exams or something, and then she's dead
that girl
for like the rest of the day, which is very funny because you're rolling like with disadvantage on everything, and it's like your movement speed halves. Like it's rough.
Yeah, it's very funny. Very very like stereotypical college kid that pulled an all-nighter.
Yeah.
And is now like dead to the world after an exam. You're like, I was conscious long enough to retain the information in my brain to regurgitate it on a piece of paper. And now I'm dead.
Yep.
Now I'm dead. Oh, it's been very good. Have you ever had like situations in games where someone, either you or someone or the DM had like some homebrew rules and things that were like not super great?
I've had, to be honest, I've been fortunate where like most of the homebrew rules I've encountered have made sense to me and kind of been what I see as like improvements on rules as written. I've had the opposite experience where like the rules as written for like health potions is that it's an action to take a health potion.
Yeah.
And I hate that rule because I think it's stupid. Like, because you're an adventurer and you would just have that shit on your belt. Now, so I think like, it should either be a bonus action or I like the idea of like, if you take an action, then you get the like max health of the health potion. But if you take it, if you use a bonus action to drink it, then you roll for it. I think that's a really cool compromise that like we found recently. But yeah, especially like to have to burn a whole action to drink my juice annoys me. I'm trying to think if there are. I don't know if I can't think of any like awful ones that I've encountered. Have you?
I remember, and I do think that the DM also regretted this in hindsight, but like,
unless I'm just blocking something out.
No,
which I might
you're good. Like in that Barovia campaign, the other player that like was briefly with us, I think his character was like a satyr or something, and he had a staff of like, I forget what it was. It was like a staff of power or something that like basically could issue command to like an entire room of fucking people and creatures.
That's right. Oh, I blocked that out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, it might have just been the trauma, and my brain's like, don't remember it. Don't remember that.
The staff basically, like, literally, like 10 or 20 fucking creatures in a room, and he could just issue command on them.
It probably was like a staff of power or something. Like, because I think there is an item.
I forget the specific name of it, but it was like
Staff of the War Mage or Wand of the War Mage or whatever.
It was something.
I don't know. But
it was something. And like the DM very much like immediately regretted giving that player that item for several reasons. Because like you can't go into literally any encounter without him trying to basically mentally manipulate all of your beasties.
Yeah, and sabotage it. Just be like, you're the DM and you're like, explain a thing, you're like, this is what they're going to do, and then one of the players is like, fuck you, no, we're not, we're going to draw dicks on the wall, and it's like, wait, what?
Am I misremembering that he took it away from that person?
I don't remember if he took it away or if that person just stopped playing with us. But that was the closest I've come to PC on PC violence that was unplanned, because I was like, I play a monk, I'm a level 6 monk, I have 2 hits a turn, I can flurry of blows and get 2 offhands. Like, can I kill this fucking satyr warlock with 2
In one
quarterstaff
go.
hits and in one round, can I murder this person? Because if I can, I might do it.
I might do it. Yeah, no. That particular call I do remember being a bit rough.
Yeah, I'd fully blocked that memory out of my brain. I'd repressed that one. Fully repressed that one.
Fair.
One memory I have of that person was like we were in, I think it was like the like tests run session we played, because like some of the players like were kind of newer to the friend group, so we were just like testing for like party chemistry.
Yeah.
And so we played like kind of a flash forward session before we like you know went back and explained how we got into the dread domains in the actual campaign. And like we were in that like cave system that was like a maze, and it had all those mushrooms. And I just remember this guy who played that fucking warlock. He was just fucking off in the mushrooms and like jumping out and attacking people or some shit. I might be misquoting that. They're probably not listening, or they are. If you're not, please don't message me either way. That was so long ago. And as I said, I've repressed a lot of what happened. Apparently.
A lot of I don't know if it was that specifically in the little Myconid cave, but yeah, there was a lot of weird.
He was just
stuff.
like not participating in the mission.
Yeah.
Maybe it was that. He was just like, we're like, what are you doing? It's like, nothing. Like,
yeah, I think that was when we went to like a graveyard and we got jumped by those things that can like teleport you to different locations. So we all got split up, and he was just like not even in the combat. Yeah,
that definitely happened. Where he was like, "I'll be with the snacks at the caravan," and all the rest.
And he was just letting us all get our shit rocked. Thankfully, we all rocked their shit pretty easily, but like, he just did not even contribute to that.
No, he just didn't participate. I was like, well, that's a choice. Yeah, but I think something weird happened in that first session too, where I was like, well, this is interesting.
I will say, so like one with our campaign, which was something that like I had to learn through experience, because like, as I mentioned, like y'all are Nepo babies, and you also have like really powerful like family members and friends and allies that were already like pre-established in your lore going into it. So there have been times where like there's just the slightest inkling of regret of giving you so much open access to really, really powerful NPCs across
like
the
Raina.
board. Like Raina, or even Jack's brother, any of Callista's fucking relatives.
True, yeah. Callista's just network.
Sometimes it's been clutch, like whenever y'all were in Anya's arc, and I was like, there's a multitude of ways to get into Lisette's laboratory. I don't know what the fuck y'all are gonna do. And she just called that favor in with Amber, and I was like, you know what? This is a good way to do it, and it's already 1:00 in the morning, so we gotta get this ball rolling.
We love Amber.
So I was like, no, you are gonna get a very powerful item from her, so we can keep this shit moving.
Yeah, we listen and we don't judge where she got that from. That's no one's business.
No one's business. So yeah, that was a good moment for that. But like, there are times whenever like, I've had to like, whenever the conversation starts going towards like, can I call my brother? Can I call this person? Can I do this? I have to really weigh within myself like how much leniency I'm gonna give, because it can be pretty like, I wouldn't call it game breaking, but it just feels like a cop out almost. Like I'm not like,
and like it's not always entirely fair to just be like, I'm gonna call in, you know, a deity or a demigod to handle my problem for me.
Correct.
Instead of like figuring out a way to do it yourself. And like, like I try to be, because like Anya has connection, like Raina is like Auntie Raina to her, so it's like. But also, like, I try to be aware of one, Raina has shit going on. Raina's busy. So it's even, like, I've thrown around with, like, Cora coming as being Anya's date to, like, Callista's ball, right? Because Anya's anxious about it. And I was like...
And that's fine.
Yeah, but I did ask you. Because I was like, is that going to be weird? Because, like, it could be fun to just, like, would Raina send some shit and be like, hey, plant this in a guest room? Don't ask me what it may be.
Maybe.
But, like, it could just be like fun to like, but it isn't anything that would be like crazy.
Yeah,
or...
and like my metric for that is like, you can invite her, but like I'm probably gonna have her sit out the big combat that is gonna
fully. And like, there was no part of me that like wanted Cora to fight in it because I don't want anything to happen to Cora.
Yeah.
I just want Cora there for emotional support.
Yeah. So yeah, there's degrees where I'm like, I start kind of flexing around, like, how much do I allow? How much do I not allow with those? Because yeah, or like, if that person's conveniently not within reach at the moment, mind your business, because you might be getting a little too close to something that you shouldn't have just a fucking golden key to open that door.
Yeah.
Right this moment.
Jack's brother is busy. He can't come to the phone right now.
He cannot come to the phone right now. So yeah, that is one of like my little moments of like, I guess the lack of experience as a DM, where I was like, yeah, maybe that wasn't the best idea. But like, we found workarounds, and also y'all are not like super abusive of those resources.
No.
So it's not a problem I have to encounter like very frequently. There are times when Callista does a shot in the dark and asks Amryn for information, and I roll a 20 against myself, and then I have to do nothing about it.
That was rough, yeah.
But that's the nature of the game, and that's okay.
I like how after that happened, we're all just like, hey, we're not going to bring that up for a cool, like, 5 sessions.
Really, all of you have given me so much grace and been like, hey, nobody is going to ask about this bitch for
We're not.
a hot minute.
We're like, hey, what if we're going to finish this arc, and then we'll see how we feel about it.
Think about it. Yeah, yeah. I was like, hey, I've lost my fucking mind. Please don't ask about this random bitch who was not supposed to become anything until like 2 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
As I'm recalculating everything in the back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, it's part of learning, especially in a world that I've homebrewed entirely, and like almost all the characters are of my own making, where you have to kind of learn what you do allow, what you don't allow. There's certain times when you've allowed things, and like, I'm not gonna take away your fucking family members and shit. Like,
right.
So I have to find ways to play around that and like create my own sense of limitations that also feel fair and are not like me just bringing a fucking wall down and being like, no, you can't use this toy anymore, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. And it is also, I think, like, that's helped by the fact of like our characters are at adventuring college. Like, we're meant to be
learning,
being more independent and solving our own problems. So it's like, yes, we have like powerful connections, but you can't call that in all the time because those people have shit to do, and they're not always going to be around to do everything for you. And then
like people when they first get to college and they still ask their parent to make like a doctor's appointment, and they're like, I'm going to hold your hand when I say this.
Yeah.
You got to do that shit yourself.
Or they like bring their laundry home with them.
Yeah.
To go through. And it's like, I need you to pull it together.
I need you to do a couple things by yourself, because pretty soon you are about to be in the real world, and you do need to like know how to do these things on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's from a place of love if they're ever unwilling to help you. If your lives are in danger and they're aware of it, yeah, some shit might happen, but
right,
we get there when we get there.
For sure.
But yeah, that for me is both like the positives and negatives of homebrew in general. I personally love it, like to have a world that I've like basically completely made up along with y'all. Because yeah, like I think homebrew alleviates so much pressure and also just creates so much flexibility and room for creativity, and I think makes for very interesting stories.
Yeah. And it really lets us actively participate in the story, and we're more invested in the world because we helped build it. And so it's like there's parts of it where like some of us know a little bit more than others, and we're like excited to show our friends like the thing we've helped you build, instead of just like of course there's stuff that none of us know about that we'll discover kind of the old-fashioned way, but it's nice to feel like you have more of a hand in it. I think it helps us be more invested in the game.
Yeah. Well, it is looking like we are coming up on time, but thank you guys so much for joining us for another episode. We will be doing kind of semi-bi-weekly schedules moving forward until we kind of settle into wherever we're going to settle social media wise.
Yeah, a lot of things.
A lot of things up in the air at the moment, but we do still want to create our content and provide that for the people that enjoy it. So you can see us every other Wednesday for a short period of time, and then we'll probably get back to a weekly schedule once we figure things out on our end.
Once things calm down, we can start batch recording again and such.
But we appreciate y'all so much. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Table Talk is a podcast brought to you by Mythos Media Productions, bringing you a new episode every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcast. Find us on Instagram and TikTok at Table Talk RPG, or check us out at our website, mythosmediaproductions.godaddyscites.com. All business inquiries can reach out to us via email at info@mythosmediaproductions.com.